It's January 17th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the ongoing investigation into President Yoon Suk-yeol's botched martial law order. A South Korean court dismissed Yoon's legal team's petition over the legality of the detention of the impeached president, which will keep Yoon in custody. Investigators are expected to file a warrant on Friday to officially arrest Yoon for further questioning. The second formal impeachment hearing for President Yoon took place without him on Thursday, after the Constitutional Court rejected Yoon's request to reschedule the hearing. Yoon's legal team and the Parliament's legal team debated the legitimacy of Yoon's martial law declaration. At least 86 Palestinians were killed in Israeli airstrikes across the Gaza Strip since the announcement of a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. The U.S. is still confident the three-phase deal will go into effect on Sunday, despite a last-minute delay by Israel's cabinet to ratify the deal. With the court rejecting a petition challenging President Yoon's detention, investigators can and will continue to try to question him, while also filing a warrant on Friday to officially arrest him. Let's connect with our Kim Bo-kyung at the investigators' office over in Gwacheon City. Bo-kyung.
Hello, Tommy.
So, Bo-kyung, let's start with the court's dismissal of the petition. Fill us in.
All right, Tommy, as you have already said, the Seoul Central District Court dismissed impeached President Yoon's request to challenge his detention after hours of deliberation on Thursday. You see, President Yoon was taken into custody on Wednesday and detained by the CIO for questioning over his December 3rd martial law declaration and has been refusing to speak or attend interrogations. Yoon's legal team tried to turn things around by filing a petition to the Seoul Central District Court seeking a review of the legality of his detention. They argued the detention warrant against him issued by the Seoul Western District Court was invalid and that the CIO lacked jurisdiction over insurrection. The court convened a hearing at 5 p.m. to review Yoon's request, but as it rejected claims from Yoon's side, the president remains in custody as the investigation continues. Yoon's legal team expressed regret over the court's decision, saying it is unfortunate how illegal and unlawful actions are tolerated while the rule of law is being undermined. Yoon's side added they will not comply with the CIO's investigation, saying they cannot accept illegal procedures.
Well, Bo-kyung, the next step for now for the investigators is seeking a formal arrest warrant for President Yoon Suk-yeol. We should expect that to happen today as well, right?
Yes, Tommy. The CIO originally had to decide whether to seek arrest warrant by 10:33 a.m. today, but the 48-hour deadline has been extended to 9 p.m. tonight as the court review was in progress. Since around 2 p.m. on Thursday, when investigators submitted documents, including evidence, to the court, the detention period remained on hold until the court returned the documents to the CIO investigators early this morning at 12:35 a.m. Now, with the court's decision, the CIO is expected to seek a formal arrest warrant late Friday night to keep him in detention for a longer period. If the formal arrest warrant is issued, Yoon can be held for a total of 20 days, including the initial 48-hour detention period. The CIO will likely hold and question Yoon for 8 more days before transferring the case to the prosecution, which has the authority to indict a suspect. Both parties have already agreed to spend 10 days each questioning Yoon.
So it looks like it's going to be another long day today. Bo-kyung, before I let you go, I'm sure pro-Yoon protesters remain distressed and upset. I can hear that in the background.
That's right, Tommy. They absolutely were, and they are right now. After the court rejected Yoon's request, supporters gathered in front of the Seoul Central District Court expressed their anger and reportedly moved to Seoul Detention Center to show their support for President Yoon. The police unofficially estimated that around 300 people were gathered in front of the court last night. A conservative group rally with an estimated 3,000 participants is scheduled to take place in front of Seoul Detention Center at 1 p.m. p.m. today. Now, that is all I have for now, but I will bring you more updates in our later newscast. Back to you, Dami.
Already, Bo-kyung, thank you for that coverage. That was our Kim Bo-kyung reporting live from the investigator's office. In the meantime, President Yoon stays put in the Seoul detention center after refusing to testify on Thursday. Now, according to his legal team, he won't show up for Friday's questioning either. Kim Jong-un reports.
President Yoon Suk-yeol continues to refuse investigative procedures. The Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials notified Yoon to attend questioning at 10 a.m. on Friday, but his legal team has indicated he will not comply. Since his arrest on Wednesday, Yoon has remained silent. During his initial 10-hour interrogation, he declined to answer questions, verify his testimony, or sign documents. On Thursday, he delayed a second round of questioning due to health concerns and ultimately skipped the rescheduled session. The president has consistently argued that the investigation by the CIO is illegal, but legal experts disagree.
It's true that CIO does not have specific jurisdiction over insurrection, but what they do have is the jurisdiction to look at any related crime, and here they are investigating Yoon's abuse of office. So it's entirely within their jurisdiction, so there's absolutely no problem.
Professor Cho added that despite Yoon's silence, the CIO would still be able to indict him. Yoon is currently being held in a pretrial detention cell separate from other detainees. The facility provides basic amenities including a bed, table, and private restroom. He's been given the same food as provided to other detainees, costing around 1,700 Korean won or about $1.2 per serving to make. The Justice Ministry has assigned a special team to monitor Yoon's safety around the clock. Meanwhile, Yoon's legal team has filed complaints against top investigators, arguing his arrest was illegal and vowing to challenge the investigation. Officials are considering stronger measures, such as forcibly escorting Yoon to questioning or conducting an on-site interview. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
And the second impeachment hearing for President Yoon was carried out as scheduled on Thursday without him, where his legal representatives and the National Assembly's legal team exchanged some heated words. Our Oh Soo-young has more.
President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment trial unfolded with intense political overtones as the Constitutional Court proceeded without the leader at the second hearing on Thursday.
As a full-fledged debate began, lawyers representing Yoon and the National Assembly presented conflicting narratives about the legality and the context of the martial law decree declared on December 3rd last year.
The National Assembly's panel presented 5 grounds for impeachment, declaring there was no basis or conditions that made it necessary for a martial law decree, which can only be triggered by the president in times of national crises such as war or those akin to war. The panel also said Yoon violated the procedure of declaring the decree by not having properly attained and documented cabinet approval. They also claimed Yoon tried to paralyse the functions of Parliament by aiming to prevent a motion to lift martial law, as well as block political activities, gatherings and press freedom. The Assembly side further said Yoon tried to undermine the independence of the National Election Commission and tried to detain judicial figures.
The respondent violated the Constitution, attempting to dismantle the Republic of Korea's constitutional and democratic system in one sweeping act.
Meanwhile, Yoon's lawyers questioned the impeachment process and emphasised the context in which the president felt forced to declare the fateful decree. The lawyers insisted that the president was initiating a peaceful martial law against the opposition-led parliament's series of attacks and impeachment motions against the incumbent government.
I'd like to ask how exactly you, as the opposition-led parliament, have been protecting the political opposition, which is the administration, with your relentless attacks? You claim protecting the political opposition is fundamental to liberal democracy, and that hit me hard.
Yoon's side also raised suspicions about election fraud and claimed it was the president's duty to try to protect the constitutional order as the National Election Commission refused to accept investigations. They fundamentally argued that martial law should not be subject to judicial review, calling it an act of governance that can be exercised by the president. The team further reiterated their position that the National Assembly panel's move to remove debate over insurrection from the trial undermines its legitimacy, as the Assembly cited insurrection as a major reason for impeachment in their resolution. The second hearing took place without the president, as the leader was arrested and taken in for questioning on Wednesday. Under the Constitutional Court Act, the judicial bench is able to hold trial hearings without the respondent if they are absent for the second time. The court denied Yoon's request to delay Thursday's session, saying that his 48-hour detainment didn't justify rescheduling. However, during the hearing, the bench decided to add 3 full days of trial hearings until February 13th. It originally set 5 afternoon sessions until February 4th, which Yoon's defense objected to. His legal team has argued that the trial is moving along too quickly without sufficient discussion or notification of the proceedings. The team has also objected to the court obtaining investigation records as evidence. To this, the court said Thursday that it does not violate the law, and also announced that 5 senior officials under investigation, including former Defense Minister Kim Jong-un and former Intelligence Chief Hong Jang-won, were selected as witnesses, with testimony set for January 23rd and February 4th. The next trial hearing for the president's impeachment will be held Tuesday at 2 p.m. Young, Arirang News.
According to South Korea's intel agency, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump might pursue smaller-scale agreements with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Now, why not big deal? Something that Trump pursued and chased 6-7 years ago. We are joined by Dr. Bruce Bennett. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks for joining us. Let's start with what these small-scale agreements could be. I mean, what could be included in these smaller deals?
Well, I think the problem with the large deal is that Kim rejected that even back in 2019. Then President Trump tried to get Kim, as I understand it, to offer more than just Yongbyon, to offer a more extensive set of shutdown of nuclear facilities in the north, and Kim absolutely refused. So he's not going to try and cross that path again. The other problem, of course, that he faces is that Kim was furious after President Trump walked out of that Hanoi summit. And so I think at this stage, it's not going to be a group of 2 friends getting together and trying to negotiate. It's going to likely be Trump leveraging Kim and saying something like, we want you to shut down the Yongbyon uranium enrichment facility, a limited agreement, and if you don't, we will modernize all of the U.S. nuclear weapons storage in South Korea. Won't put nuclear weapons there, but we'll modernize that. That kind of coercive environment may be the only way he gets to some form of meaningful negotiation.
So Trump may be seeking smaller agreements because of all the experience that they went through 6-7 years ago. Again, what kind of smaller deals then do you expect to come out this time, if they ever met?
Well, I think that Trump will try to focus on individual elements of the nuclear program. Trying to get Kim to give up his whole nuclear weapon program, that's just not going to happen. You look at even public opinion polls in South Korea, and 90% of people don't think North Korea is going to fully denuclearize. So Trump is going to have to try to take it a piece at a time, and that's going to be tough working with Kim because Kim is going to be resistant to any reduction. Remember, Kim has said he wants to exponentially increase his nuclear weapons and nuclear weapon production. So cutting down on that increase is going to be a very tough effort.
What kind of deals do you think have the highest chance to please and satisfy both Trump and Kim Jong-un?
Oh, I doubt that any deal will please both sides. I think it's probably going to have to be done coercively, and I think Trump's targets will likely be on certain nuclear production facilities. I think it's easier to get Kim to agree to freeze certain aspects of the nuclear weapons nuclear production than it is to get Kim to give up nuclear weapons themselves. And so I suspect that's where he's going to start. But to do that, he is going to have to be prepared to coerce Kim and push him to do that.
So it's a given that Trump and Kim Jong-un will engage, in the near future during the Trump second administration. Now, what should then South Korea do so that we don't get left out of Washington-Pyongyang talks, especially when, things are really rocky here on the Korean Peninsula or here in South Korea because of the whole political drama?
Well, I think an important part of this is for the South Korean government to start working with the Trump administration as soon as they're inaugurated on Monday and start offering their own ideas on what parts of the North Korean nuclear program ought to be discontinued. That's an important aspect, and in what kind of ways Kim can be pressured in order to do that. Not pressured in terms of military actions, but pressured in terms of giving a comparable program to the South Korean government. We know that South Korea has F-35 aircraft. They could carry nuclear weapons. Tell Kim that we're going to put nuclear weapons storage at that base so that if Kim doesn't stop production at the new nuclear weapon uranium enrichment facility he just produced. We've got to give Kim some incentive to move ahead.
Staying in close touch with the incoming Trump administration will be crucial for South Korea. Dr. Bennett, North Korea fired a hypersonic missile 2 weeks ahead of the launch of Trump administration and another short-range ballistic missile 1 week ago. Should we expect another missile launch on the inauguration day next week?
Well, I think we probably can. The problem that Kim faces is he's sending many of his missiles to Russia. So he doesn't have a lot of extra missiles to test. But he probably is prepared to hold back a missile or two or three in order to make a point. He may do it on the inauguration day. He may do it shortly before or after. But he's going to want to catch Trump's attention. And Trump's got to be prepared to come back and say, you shouldn't have done that. Here's the penalty for doing that.
Right. Well, that time Trump will be speaking as the U.S. leader. Dr. Bennett, thanks so much for your time and your insight. As always, you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. My pleasure.
The global economy is expected to grow by 2.7% in 2025 and again in 2026. That is according to the World Bank's World Economic Prospects Report released on Thursday. It added that while the global economy stable, the economies of developing countries are expected to make a slow progress in catching up with the advanced economies. Now, among the advanced economies, the U.S. is expected to grow 2.3% this year, while Japan is forecast to grow just 1.2%. And China is expected to see growth of 4.5% this year. Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power and Korea Electric Power Corporation have resolved their intellectual property dispute with U.S.-based Westinghouse. The agreement announced Friday ends the legal dispute and paves the way for stronger cooperation in the global nuclear energy market. With KHNP, the preferred bidder for a nuclear power project in Czech Republic, the deal is expected to boost their chances of securing the project. And KHNP said it aims to strengthen its position in the global market by forming a new strategic relationship with Westinghouse. Despite an Israeli-Hamas ceasefire, which is set to begin on Sunday, Israel conducted another airstrike on Thursday, killing a total of 86 Palestinians. Our Lee Seung-ja has more.
Many rejoiced at the news of a 6-week ceasefire deal agreed between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas. But just days before the deal is implemented on Sunday, Israel conducted more airstrikes in Gaza, killing at least 3 more Gazans and raising the death toll to 86 since the news of the ceasefire agreement. According to Gaza's Civil Defense Service, the death toll includes 23 children and 27 women. During the same period, more than 250 Palestinians have also been injured in airstrikes across Gaza. Israel's cabinet was set to vote on the ceasefire deal on Thursday, but the vote did not take place, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu blaming a last-minute disagreement with Hamas for the delay. The Prime Minister's office said the militant group is reneging on parts of the agreement in order to gain further concessions. It accused Hamas of backing out of the understandings and creating a last-minute crisis that prevents a settlement. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the deal will start on time, despite what he called a last-minute loose end.
On the ceasefire, yes, I am confident, and I fully expect that implementation will begin, as we said, on Sunday. Look, it's not exactly surprising that in a process and a negotiation that has been this challenging and this fraught, you may get a loose end. We're tying up that loose end as we speak.
Following the ceasefire agreement, the European Union on Thursday pledged 120 million euros, or over $123 million in aid for Palestine. According to European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in a post on X, the ceasefire and hostage release agreement offers hope the region desperately needed, but added that Gaza's humanitarian situation remains grim. The aid will provide assistance to address acute food insecurity and malnutrition, healthcare assistance, water, sanitation and hygiene support, shelter and protection assistance. The latest humanitarian assistance to Gaza from the bloc brings the total to over $460 million since 2023. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, let's take a look at the stories from around the world with our Choi Ji-hee. Good morning, Ji-hee.
Good morning, Tammy.
So, Ji-hee, let's begin today with the meetup between the Ukrainian president and the British Prime Minister. A historic partnership was sealed between the two states. Tell us more.
That's right. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer visited Kyiv on January 16th to sign a 100-year partnership agreement with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The agreement aims to strengthen security ties, defense cooperation, and economic collaboration, including supporting Ukraine's post-war reconstruction. During the visit, Starmer said the UK's commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty and security is steadfast and enduring. This visit is part of a broader initiative by European leaders to reaffirm their support for Ukraine ahead of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration. Leaders from Germany and France have also recently visited Kyiv to show their solidarity with Ukraine. Moving to the Middle East, Iraq is finalizing a deal with U.S. oil firm Halliburton to develop the Nahr Bin Omar oilfield. It aims to boost the oilfield's production from approximately 50,000 barrels per day to 300,000 barrels per day. The deal also includes plans to produce gas from the same field. It's part of Iraq's broader strategy to increase its oil and gas production. Iraq also plans to increase its output from the West Korna 1 field operated by PetroChina to 750,000 barrels per day by the end of the year. It also working with China Petroleum Engineering and Construction Corporation on a $1.7 billion gas project. Over in Slovakia, an 18-year-old high school student has been detained after allegedly stabbing 2 people to death. The stabbings happened on Thursday local time in the small town of Spišská Stara Ves in the north of the country near the Polish border. A deputy principal and a student were killed. The suspect fled the scene but was immediately detained by the police. While stabbings are rare in Slovakia, similar incidents occurred in 2020 and 2022, where the suspects were also young students. The Slovakian Ministers of Interior and Education visited the town and committed to implementing measures to prevent future attacks and improve safety for students and teachers. American filmmaker David Lynch has died at the age of 78. The director died due to complications from emphysema, a chronic lung condition, according to his family. His celebrated creations include Blue Velvet, The Elephant Man, and Mulholland Drive, all of which received Best Director Oscar nominations, and the TV series Twin Peaks. Lynch's career began with the 1977 classic Eraserhead and received an honorary Academy Award in 2019 for his contributions to cinema. While Lynch fought health challenges in recent years, he kept working on creative endeavors until his passing.
Freezed air continues in central regions. Gangwon province is seeing lows below -10 to even -15 degrees Celsius. It's icy roads out there for central regions in Jeollabuk-do province. Please drive and walk with care. However, afternoon highs will rise rapidly to way above norms. Temperatures will go up further over the weekend, and next Monday marks Taehan, the last winter season term. So we should be having the coldest time of the year, but temperatures have been rather generous and should stay above norms through next week and likely into the Seollal holiday. Checking on today's highs now, Seoul gets up to 5 degrees, Daegu at 8 degrees under sunny skies nationwide. Air quality will be normal in most parts except in Sejong during the morning. But a dry weather advisory remains in place for the East Coast, so hikers should take extra caution against wildfires. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That is all we have for this morning. We'll be back next Monday at the same time, 10 a.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.
Country where traditional and modern cultures coexist.
Where you can explore spectacular landscapes and nature.
Savor the delights of traveling at every turn.
Where? Korea, of course.
There are some must-visit places in Korea. Ones that appear in every tour guidebook: Hangang River, Gyeongbokgung Palace from the Joseon Dynasty, and...
Yes, these are essentials, but I want to go somewhere a little different. I don't have to follow the guidebook. For example, filming locations for K-pop music videos or K-dramas and movies.
Traveling is all about taking it slow. A long walk at your own pace, or even zoning out somewhere quiet. Doesn't it sound relaxing?
You travel for the experience, trying something new in a foreign place, de-stressing and making lifetime memories, taking tons of pictures along the way.
70% of the Korean territory is mountainous. Naturally, hiking is a very popular pastime in Korea. Not your kind of activity? Trust me, the view will make the effort worth it. Just catch your breath by the cold stream in the valley.
Korea is surrounded by the sea on three sides. From the beach, you can enjoy a wide open view as well as various water activities. But the riverside is great too. There's plenty to see and do.
If you're in Korea, you can't miss the night view full of dazzling lights.
Yes, even the same place can have a totally different vibe at night.
Want to make unforgettable memories?
How about traveling to all corners of Korea? Join us next time to explore more about Korean culture.
고무장갑 다 똑같다고? 아니, 러버랩은 달라. 내 손인 듯 하루 종일 편하게. 슬림한 두께로 낀 듯 안 낀 듯 가볍게. 튼튼하니까 걱정 없이. 두 가지 길이로 다양하게 쓰는 러버랩으로 만드는 편리한 일상. 껴보면 달라. 러버랩 고무장갑. 러버랩.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Friday, January 17th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're watching News Generation. Joining us today is Brooke Prince.
Hello, happy to be here.
Happy Friday. And Lee Won-bin.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So it's Friday, time to explore topics that resonate with young people around the world. And today we're going to talk about the rise in people living alone, a trend that's reshaping lifestyles not only here in Korea, but around the world. So according to the latest data from Statistics Korea, there were 7.83 million single-person households last year, accounting for 35.5% of all households here in the country. And this is the highest since data collection began in 2015. But it's not just here in Korea. This shift is happening globally. So I want to start off with a really light and simple question. Do you live alone? Starting with you, Brooke.
Yes, I am technically a single-person household, but I do live with my cat, and he is like my child. So there is that, yes. I have lived independently from my family since I was 18 years old, which is pretty common for Americans. I know in Korea, it's a little bit different. People tend to live with their families for longer, sometimes even until they get married. But in America, we do tend to flee the nest at 18. I left and I moved to Los Angeles all by myself, and I had roommates all through college. Then I moved to Korea, and I finally was able to live by myself. And I've been doing that for the last 8 years or so, and I find that I really enjoy it. I'm what they say in Korean, 완전 I. I am the introvert? Yes, the introvert of the MBTI. I really enjoy my alone time, and I find having that safe private space to recharge to be so important to me. Plus, it's nice not having a roommate because no one has to fight over the thermostat.
Right.
You can watch whatever you want whenever you want. You can decorate your space how you like to. Don't have to have any visitors unless you want them. You basically just get to live on your own terms, and that's why I really like living alone.
You have the full space to yourself.
Yes.
Right. So Brooke lives alone. I'm currently living with my parents. What about you, Won-bin?
I am living alone as well. I started to live apart from my family when I moved to Canada to study in high school. And currently I'm living alone in Korea as well. I'm living near my work to reduce commute time. And living alone, I gotta say, I'm sorry to mom and dad, but I'm loving it. One of the biggest perks and the benefits from living alone is definitely the freedom that you get in many ways, especially when you're not only physically independent, but you're financially independent from your family as well, which means you're paying the rent and every expenses like the food and everything, the utilities as well. This means that you are basically a completely different independent entity from your parents or your family, and it allows you to make your independent decisions on your own at your own responsibility. And one thing that I really want to add on to this is that compared to the previous generation, I feel like youngsters nowadays, so the MZ generations, are more looking forward to live alone, and it's becoming more of like a dream thing that many people in their 20s dream of. And I think it's because compared to the past, about 30, 40 years ago, Korea as a country is now more developed, it's more stable compared to the past where there were many constructions and changes of cities and infrastructures. So I think that's the reason why people are really wanting to live alone nowadays, and it definitely is an ongoing trend within Korea.
Right, and we're going to talk about the reasons a bit later in our episode. But just by looking at us here in the studio, 2 out of 3 are living by themselves, which really shows that this is becoming a huge trend among our generation. And also building on the stats that I mentioned earlier in the first part of our episode, it is a fact that our generation is making up a significant share of these people living alone. So Brooke, could you please tell us or break down the numbers for us?
Sure, I certainly can. According to the 2024 statistics on single-person households released by Statistics Korea, the number of single-person households now constitutes the largest proportion among all household types. Looking further into this data, those aged 70 and over, as you can see on this chart, accounted for the largest share of single-person households at 19.1%, followed closely by individuals in their 20s at 18.6%, those in their 60s and 30s both at 17.3%, then people in their 50s at 15.1%, and finally those in their 40s at 12.6%. So the MZ generation really does take up quite a big portion.
Right.
Now, if you're wondering where these people are located, regionally, 47.7%, or nearly half of all single-person households in the country reside in the Seoul metropolitan area. They also looked into the reasons why people want to live alone. The first one is a sad one. It's the death of a spouse is the first reason why people end up living alone. The second was personal study or work, and the other was just simply the desire to live alone, people like me who just enjoy having that space. And I think overall what you can take from all of this data is that, yes, we have an aging population, we have the low birth rate, those are contributing to this trend, but I also think that there's a cultural shift. I think the young generation is now prioritizing their personal freedom and their career development over getting married and having a family, and I think that's why we're seeing a big rise in single-person households.
Definitely. So Brooke showed us a big picture showing that more than 1/3 of people who are living alone here in Korea are part of our generation, those in their 20s and 30s. Then Wonbin, in your first answer, you briefly mentioned some of the possible reasons why more young people are choosing to live alone. Could you provide us some more reasons?
Of course I can. So I think one of the biggest reasons of why single-person households are increasing is the social perception of we see them. In the past, living alone often came with a negative label or a tag such as 노총각 or 노처녀, which basically means an unmarried old man or woman. But nowadays it's seen as a personal choice, and it is respected as a valid lifestyle. Some shifts in trend do also back this phenomenon up. Again, back to the changing perception, if we rewind just about 30 to 40 years ago, having unity as like a nation was considered as a very important matter, such as having the same haircuts, school uniforms, and if we go back a little bit more into the 80s, there's countrywide curfews set by law as well. And nowadays, individualism is the new norm, unlike the past. People are welcome to express their uniqueness and style via fashion, lifestyle, hobbies, and many different methods. And living alone is just an extension, or I think it could even be the final form of individualism, because it gives you a private, safe space that is just yours and only yours.
Right, so it's not just longer life expectancies or an aging population, but at least among our generation, I think that perception, a change in perception and values is playing a key role in more people opting to live alone. Now, expanding our discussion, we also asked our viewers whether they prefer living alone or with others, such as their families, their friends, or partners. So let's take a look at their responses. So we conducted this survey through our Arirang News YouTube channel. It was conducted between January 9th to 15th among the 563 votes that our viewers gave to the question, what's your preferred living arrangement? Alone said 64% chose alone, while 36% chose with others. Let's take a look at some of the opinions. Rahina Saka 7004 says, I choose to live alone. Living with others can be very nice, but when your way of living does not match their way of living with them starts to become hard. Jen Jack Sky says, no man is an island. We are social beings. I love my family, and living with family is the best human experience there is for me. Moonha says, living alone allows me to focus on myself and my goals better, I find peace in solitude and freedom from unnecessary conflicts. So by looking at the poll results that was voted by our viewers, we can see that more than half of them chose to live alone. So we're now going to broaden our discussion even more and examine how this trend is playing out in other parts of the world. So could you start us off, Wonbin?
Absolutely. This rising trend in single-person households is not a situation just in Korea. It's a global phenomenon. Let's take a look. In Sweden, over 56% of households consist of individuals living alone, which is easily more than half. And similarly, Denmark, Finland, and Germany all surpassed 40% as of 2018, and assuming it'll be higher in 2025. It shows how this trend is happening, is reshaping lifestyle not only in Korea, but globally around the world, regardless of continent, regions, or culture.
So we've talked about Europe. Let's now focus on other continents. Let's first start with your home country, the States, Brooke.
Certainly. So in 2023, about 38.1 million households in the U.S. were single-person households. And this was a record high, representing nearly 30% of all households in the country. So about 1 in 3 people that you meet is living alone. The number of people living alone has increased each decade in the U.S. since 1940, and it's more than tripled since that time. I read that it was around 8% then, which is a huge difference.
Right.
And this has also been attributed to similar reasons that we've been talking about with Korea. People are living longer and the birth rate as well. But the cultural shift is also happening in the U.S. It's shifting towards being more career-focused and self-sufficient. And what does that mean? People are going to get married later because they're focused on their jobs and getting their financial means ready to have a child. Looking closer to Korea, in Japan, 34% of households were single-person households in 2023, making it the most common household type there. So clearly, as we've been saying, this is not just something that's happening in Korea. There is a global shift happening towards single-person households.
Definitely. So single-person households are becoming more widespread globally. So to delve deeper into why more people around the world are choosing to live alone, we'll soon be joined by a Gen Z from Finland after this break.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Well, today we're pleased to be joined by Nina Rustet, a Gen Z from Finland. Welcome, Nina, to the show.
Hi, and good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. So, Nina, we first want to ask you, our panelists earlier mentioned that Europe has a significant proportion of single-person households. So we want to ask you, are you currently living by yourself, and are you noticing this trend among people around you?
Yes, I've been living alone for around 5 years for my studies, and I do see this trend being fairly common among my friends, especially those who live in bigger cities.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us today. I'm curious, why do you think more young people are choosing to live alone, like you mentioned?
As you mentioned before, the trend to live alone, I think it reflects both societal and economic changes. And there is a growing emphasis on self-reliance and personal freedom for young people. And many people also prefer to focus on their studies or career before committing to long-term relationships or family life. And I'd also say that urbanization plays a role, as living alone is often seen as the more practical choice in cities since the opportunities are concentrated there. And in addition, in Finland, we have a social welfare system that includes different kinds of aids that make living independently more viable.
Right, absolutely. So like you said, living alone definitely has a lot of benefits and advantages compared to the traditional methods. Then are there any specific support systems or policies in Finland that cater to single-person households? And what additional support measures do you think would be helpful and beneficial for people living alone?
Well, we have several policies, and first of all, we have what we call a general housing allowance. So it helps cover rent costs based on the income and living situation. Then we have a social assistance financial aid for people who struggle to meet basic ends like rent or food. And then specifically for students, we have a student allowance, like a monthly allowance given to students. And then there are specific organizations that provide more affordable student housing. And what comes to new measures that could be taken, I'd say that increasing affordable housing options would be a good choice, since many urban areas, especially in Europe these days, they are experiencing a shortage in single-person housing. So building or renovating more compact and energy efficient apartments would be beneficial. And then some kind of tax benefits perhaps for people living alone might be useful to alleviate the financial pressure of living alone. And then lastly, I'd say that some kind of intervention programs to battle possible loneliness, since you might feel lonely when you're living alone, that could improve mental health for sure.
Couldn't agree with you more. All right, Nina, thank you so much for sharing your experience and your thoughts today, and hope you have a nice weekend.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Right, so with factors like an aging population, longer life expectancy, delayed marriages, and more people prioritizing career or studying, single-person households are projected to rise. For example, in South Korea, it's estimated that by 2052, over 40% of households will be single-person, which we're already witnessing in certain countries in Europe. So what challenges do you think these households might face?
There definitely are some challenges compared to the traditional methods of living. Single-person households are often left in vulnerable spots when it comes to welfare and institutional or government supports. They're more likely to experience weak social connections and financial stability. In fact, some studies show that the income of single-person households is only about 45% of the average for all households. And on top of that, and most importantly, 7 out of 10 people who are living alone does not own their own house, including myself.
And me as well.
And one thing, kind of connecting to this and building on top of what Nina said in her interview, I feel like the rent price, the increasing price of rent could be a really big problem because, as she said, there's a shortage of houses that a single person can live, and the demand will continuously increase, and that naturally makes the price of rent go up. And people who are living alone are mostly young people, people in their 20s and 30s, who are most often struggling financially compared to the other age ranges. So I think this is definitely another challenge that people could face.
Right, and although we are facing skyrocketing inflation, our income isn't really increasing that much. And also for single-person households, they're definitely earning less than most double-income households. So definitely single-person households, people who they could face these financial burden, and also, as Nina mentioned, loneliness as well. So to address some of these challenges, Brooke, I heard that new initiatives are being introduced in Korea this year.
That's right, and I want to say our guest Nina, she really had some fantastic points about how we can address these issues, and I think the policy reflects a lot of the things that she was talking about. With the steady rise of single-person households, the city of Seoul is implementing customized measures like what she mentioned to improve their quality of life and help to solve the health, safety, and housing problems that they might face. So to that end, the government is operating various programs to help people network and meet each other so they can alleviate that isolation and loneliness that can be caused by living alone. So they provide opportunities to enjoy things like hobbies and cultural activities together. They also help them to find employment and start businesses, because I do think if you're living alone, you need to find a lot of personal fulfillment, and working is a part of that. But I would say one of the biggest concerns about this many people living alone is their mental health and the potential for that that social isolation to lead to very unfortunate outcomes like lonely deaths, which we've seen a lot of headlines about. So in order to prevent this, local governments like Seongnam City, for example, are providing free psychological and emotional support to these households. And the Seoul government is also implementing new policies that should help as well. For example, currently depression tests in general health checkups are conducted every 10 years. But starting this year, they are changing that. Young people aged 20 to 34 will be able to receive mental health tests every 2 years instead when they receive their general health checkups. And I was really, I was very encouraged to see this policy because I think that mental health is something that could stand to be talked about more in Korea and prioritized more. So I hope that these policies will make a positive impact and make people in these single-person households feel a lot more supported by their community, because just because you're living alone doesn't mean you don't have people around you, right?
Right. I mean, it's great to hear these initiatives and these changes because it's not just financial support that's really important, but it's also, I think the point here is making people who live alone feel that they're included in the society and they're connected with each other. So ending off our episode today, traditionally, as we mentioned earlier, living with family, friends, or partners was sort of like the norm in Korea. But as we move into an era where living alone is more common, how can we better prepare for this change in society?
Well, as I was researching for this show, I read a quote that said, "This is not a trend, it's a transformation." So I think it's important to remember that this rise in single-person households, it's not a fad that's going to just fade away and drastically go back to how it was overnight. I think these single-person households are here to stay. I think we are going to see them continue to be a large segment of the population, which means that social policy needs to be adjusted and tailored. We need to move away from policy that is focused only on the family unit, that traditional household, and also include other more diverse households as well. And I want to say another important thing is to destigmatize the idea of living alone. Wonbin mentioned it earlier, there used to be negative terms about this. And so we need to really respect people's decisions, because a lot of people like myself voluntarily choose to live alone and enjoy it. So we should respect how everyone chooses to live.
Right, it's just an option or a way that you choose to live, single-person households.
Exactly.
What do you think, Wonbin?
I couldn't agree more with Brooke. I think she did a very good job just wrapping up our whole conversation. Just some things that I want to add is that I feel like this trend could be a critical turning point for the low birth rate in Korea. Currently, Korea is in trouble for having a very low birth rate. The last time I checked, it was below 0.7.
One of the lowest in the world.
Lowest in OECD countries, yes. And people living alone and everybody living separately just naturally is not an ideal environment for people to get married together, settle down, and have kids, which leads to lower marriage rates, which naturally makes lower birth rate as well. And without proper support and benefit from the government and changing the social perception, it can easily accelerate the decreasing trend of the birth rates. Therefore, I genuinely think that there should be changes in both ways, like Brooke said, from the government and the society as well. So I think it is a good change that must happen in the long-term future.
Right, so hope we can see a society where single-person households are more accepted naturally in the future. And that's all from us today, but Newsden will be back next Monday at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks today to Brooke Prince.
Thank you, have a great Friday.
You too, and Yeonbin.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for watching, and hope you have a lovely weekend. We are
News Generation.